Hello everyone and welcome to Limitless Palette, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about mixing greens from our split primary limited palette. I talk more about this in depth in my Craftsy class about color mixing, which is called Improve Your Paintings Luminous Watercolor Mixing. I will leave a link to that class down below. And that is really an in-depth look at color theory and color mixing for watercolorists using a split primary limited palette. And what that is, if you don't know, is it's using only 6 paints to create all of the colors that you need for watercolor mixing. And while I don't always use only those 6 colors, what it has done for me by using those 6 colors for a while and learning how to use them to mix many colors is that it has enabled me to mix color in a more intuitive way. I really understand color theory because of it. And the other thing it does is that it brings color harmony to our work. And I'm just going to go over briefly what our 6 colors are. And I'm using Daniel Smith paints here. This is a new Gamboge. This is a Hansa Yellow Light, which is a cool kind of lemon yellow. This is a Phthalo Blue green shade, which is a cool blue. I have French Ultramarine, which is a warm blue. I have Quinacridone Rose, which is a cool red. And I have Transparent Pyrrol Orange, which is a warm red. Now, any cool and warm yellow, cool and warm blue, or red will do for this. The main things that I look for in my paints is that they are transparent and that they are very light fast. The transparency matters to me because the more that I mix paint and the more that I layer my watercolors, the higher the chance is for them to become muddy when I start to mix a lot of colors. And so by using transparent colors, I'm more guaranteed that I'll get a luminous mix for my paintings. And again, all of this is covered in my Craftsy class. So if you really want a good basic foundational course in color mixing with watercolor, transparent watercolor, I highly suggest that class. So I'm going to use these paints today to mix up some greens. And I'm going to start by mixing the cleanest, clearest green I can. And for that, I'm going to use a cool yellow, which is my Hansa Yellow Light. And I'm going to use just a touch of my cool blue, which is Phthalo Blue green shade. And when I say a touch, I mean I'm just sticking the tip of my brush into the Phthalo Blue. This is a really strong pigment, so if I use too much of it, I'm going to get mostly blue. It's a very strong pigment. So I'm mixing in just a little bit. I get a really nice clear grassy green. Okay, kind of a spring green. And I'm going to swatch that out just right here. You see how bright and vibrant that is. I can't get anything more vibrant than that by mixing other colors into it. It's going to be the most vibrant green I can create. I can make it darker by using more pigment, so adding a little bit more yellow and a touch more blue. I can get a brighter green, a darker green, okay? But I really can't get anything more vibrant than that, okay? Now, most of the time, this type of green is going to be too green for, let's say, botanical art or anything where I'm looking for a more natural shade of green. So what I can do with this is I can add a little bit of the complementary color to green, which is red. Okay, so if I split my bright green in the middle here, and I add just a touch of my warm red, which is transparent Pyrrol orange, so just a touch, again, I'm using just the tip of my brush and adding it in. See, a little bit too much there, so I'll add a little bit more of the green in. I can gray that out considerably and get sort of an olivey green. So just by using a touch of a complementary color, I can gray out that green. And I can do the same with a cool red, but by just using a little touch, which is just a pinprick of color, on the tip of my brush to that other pile of green, I can get a darker green. So if it had even more pigment in it, it would be more like a forest green. So already I have 4 greens just by using the cool yellow and the cool blue and just a touch of warm or cool red. Okay? Now, in between all of these kind of variations of mixes, there's an entire spectrum of greens to be found. So let's say I add a little bit more of my warm yellow to that first green. Look at that. I can get a really bright chartreuse green, and by adding just a touch more of the phthalo blue to the other green, I can get more of a turquoisey color. And then maybe by adding a touch more of the cool red to that, I can get more of a muted sort of silvery green. Okay, so again, I'm barely changing the mixes here, and look at how many different colors of green I can achieve. Now, if I wanted to have a green on the warmer spectrum, I could start with a warm yellow, such as New Gamboge. And if I added the same cool green, just a touch, to that warm yellow, I'm going to get a warmer, more vibrant green, sort of like a sap green. Okay, I'm going to make a little bit more of this up. And then I can add a touch of warm red to this green, just a touch. And see how it changes the green? It mutes it out even more. So if I add a little bit more of my warm yellow and a little bit more of my cool blue, and I get that sap green again, and add a little bit of cool red, I get more of an olive green. And let's say I want to go really dark, so I can add even more of my warm yellow. Ooh, let's just see what that looks like. Beautiful, kind of warm chartreusey green. And then a little bit more of the cool blue. A little bit more. See an even darker version of sap green. Okay. And then let's add a little touch of that warm red. For an even more muted kind of gray olivey green. So see, just by using the different yellows and blues and just the cool blue, sometimes just a touch of either red, I'm getting an entire spectrum of greens here. So let's see what happens if I use the ultramarine blue. I'm just going to wipe off my palette a little bit to give myself a little bit more room. So I'm going to start with the French ultramarine blue and give myself a nice juicy puddle of that. I always want to make sure I have enough water in my mixes. Now let's see what happens if I add the cool yellow to the French ultramarine. Okay, look at that, an entirely different green. Okay, And what if I added just a tiny bit of warm red to this green? Another dark gray green. And a little bit of cool red. That kind of muted sort of silvery blue green that we like for a duck egg or something. It's the kind of that color of a blue green. So now I'm going to take my French ultramarine and I'm going to add some of the warm yellow. Look at this deep, rich green I can achieve with French ultramarine, so my warm blue and my warm yellow, a really deep kind of hunter green. Make it even darker, or just let's see what happens if I add a little bit more of the warm yellow to it. It warms it up. A little bit more of the warm blue, nice rich green. So these two colors are what I go for if I want kind of an instant really dark green. Okay, and then I can still add a touch of warm red to this. Sort of get a dark khaki green. A little more ultramarine blue, a little more warm yellow. It's really, really deep green. And then just a touch of the cool red. And I get a darker, almost black green. So again, the colors that I achieve with the cool blue are a little bit more vibrant. The colors that I achieve with the warm blue, the French ultramarine, are a little bit more muted or dull. So you can see just by playing with these 6 colors to achieve greens, I can achieve such a wide variety of greens for my green spectrum. What if I wanted to make a really pale leaf green? So I might start with my cool blue, add plenty of my cool yellow. So I kind of get this really bright spring green, okay? And if I add just a touch of the warm red to that, a little bit more, it mutes it out just a little bit. See the difference between those two? So what I want you to do is get out your paints. I want you to find yourself a warm yellow and a cool yellow, a lemony yellow, a cool blue and a warm blue, and a cool and a warm red. And I want you to make a whole array of swatches of green and just play on your palette. You don't need to worry about starting fresh each time, because a lot of times when we're color mixing, we're starting with the base color. So I'm starting kind of with a dark green. And I can use this to change it into a variety of different mixes. Okay, I can get brown from it. I can even add a little cool yellow. The number of greens that I can achieve is truly infinite. All right, so give it a try. Let me know if you have any questions. I will leave links to my Craftsy class and also talk more about the different colors that I use on my palette in the comment section below. Please ask me any questions. I am here to help, and I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's helpful. Thanks a lot. I hope you remember that just by sitting down for some playtime with our colors and mixing color intuitively, that we learn the most about color mixing for our paintings. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel for updates on all of the latest videos. Thanks so much for being here.